Hey Dan, what do you think about the game changers?
How much time you got, buddy?
The game changers. The lame strangers. What do I think about it? Well, I'll start off by saying it's a cute little propaganda piece made by James Cameron to sell pea protein to the masses. For those of you who don't know, James Cameron invested $140 million into a pea protein processing plant. I just wanted to say that because it has so many peas, figurative and literally. Um, yeah, this whole documentary, it is processed plant-based brain food for dummies. If you are into nutrition or fitness at all, there's no excuse for falling for these fucking tactics. The only person that I could see believing this bullshit is like Joe Blow's grandma down the street who still thinks that Basil is better than fucking butter because her doctor in 1992 told her that that was the case. So this whole thing opens up with James Wilks, former UFC fighter, won the UFC Ultimate Fighter series, then ended up injuring two of his knees. They did some cute little reenactments because it's not actually video from when James was hurt, but they strapped the fucking knee braces on him anyway, and he claims to have done 1,000 hours of research on the best uh, nutritional, I guess, intervention for healing up his knees, and he came to the conclusion that it was veganism. Let's unpack that a little bit. Let's look at 1,000 hours of research. What does that actually look like? Well, on the video, he's got his pen, papers all over the place, and he's got his glasses on, and he's typing away. And when realistically, it probably looked like him on Google for about 2.5 days, just fucking scrolling through memes. But let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he did 1,000 hours. So 1,000 hours, logically, that would be uh, 62 and a half days straight if he was researching 16 hours a day and sleeping 8 hours a day. So even if it was in a, say, I don't know, school setting where you're in school maybe 8 hours a day, even in a university setting, that would be a whole year's worth of university. Do I think he did a whole year's fucking course on veganism in his own fucking living room while waiting for his knees to heal up? No, because his knees would have been healed by the time he fucking finished, for one. Okay, he wouldn't have had to do any fucking research. But anyway, let's take a look at what he said. His exact quote was, um, I got injured and I think it helped me heal quicker. That is that is the end all be all of everything that James Wilks knows about veganism healing up his knees. Okay? I'm not taking anything away from this guy as a fighter. He's a great martial artist, but I'm a little bit skeptical about the rest of it. And then it goes into a cute little art piece on how Bruce Lee was his hero, and they do all kinds of virtue signaling through Bruce Lee, who, by the way, wasn't vegan. And and they talk about, all the honor and respect of Bruce Lee and how Bruce Lee was his hero, and make it almost sound like Bruce Lee was in on the fucking documentary, which had absolutely nothing to do with Bruce Lee, who is a great martial artist and philosopher, if you want to call him a philosopher. He had a great outlook on life, a pretty unique one. So anyway, I believe it's James Wilks that brings up the Gladiators, and he said after intense research, there's that word again. I mean, we all have Google, bro. Um, he he thought that gladiators were the best combat athletes of all time. Okay, and then they bring this researcher in. This pencil neck fucking geek comes in to talk about it. And they deduced that the gladiators were predominantly plant based because of the high strontium levels in their bones. Now that's probably true. There, high strontium levels are indicative of a high barley, high bean diet. Okay, which what is that? It's fucking gruel. Okay, so another direct quote from this documentary is that the gladiators were highly prized fighters who got the most advanced training and medical care in the Roman Empire. False. That's completely false. Gladiators were slaves, criminals, and prisoners. They lived in prisons and in work camps. And they fought for the entertainment of the Roman people and the Roman royalty, okay? The Roman royalty were out there watching these idiots fight to the death. I shouldn't call them idiots because they were forced to fight to the death. But they were watching these guys fight to the death while chewing on fucking steaks and eating meat. Meanwhile, what are the gladiators being fed? Well, since they're slaves, they're feeding them gruel. Gruelish slop, okay? And in that particular area of Rome, it happened to be a cheap fuel source to give them beans and barley. And that's what they used to fatten them up. Why would you fatten them up? Well, because that would protect them from hitting any vital organs or arteries while in a knife fight or a sword fight, so that the person who lives or actually survives the fight can live to fight another day. They forgot to touch on the fact that other remains of gladiators were found throughout the world, and none of them had as high strontium levels as these places. They also used a word, and I can't remember because it was a Latin word. They used a word that meant barley eater, and they talked about it in this documentary as if it was a prized title, but it was not. To be called a barley eater was just another vernacular for poor person or slave. So another false narrative there right off the bat. And then there was all of the visual imaging that they did. Every time they talked about meat in any type of context, they would show like a processed meat sandwich or a fast food burger, something with grease and bread, attached to it, and they would put like a yellowish tinge of a filter over it to make it seem ominous or unhealthy or evil. There was points in this video where they compared meat to smoking with absolutely no basis for that. They just did. They just said meat was unhealthy as smoking, and with no proof of that or no actual basis of anything. Another thing they didn't do in the film was even say the word vegan or veganism. They never said the word veganism. They always say plant-based. And they talk about different plants, like, for example, lettuce, and say that lettuce is high in antioxidants. Well, guess what, motherfucker? I eat lettuce, but I also eat meat. So I get those benefits. And then I don't need to use supplements for my B12 protein, etc., because I eat meat. So, meanwhile, these guys are living on B12 supplements and pea protein isolate, brought to you by James Cameron, right? So, and then it took a really weird turn when they said something to the effect of protein is the preferred energy source of athletes who eat meat, which is completely false. Nobody argues that point. Nobody on either side of on the vegan side saying that, but on the other side of the fence, us meat eaters are not like, oh, you need protein for energy for athletics. No, protein is for repair. Any fucking Cheeto eating fucking fat fuck coming off the couch who's worked with a personal trainer for 2 weeks knows that protein is your building blocks. Carbohydrates and fat are your fuel sources. So they have this imaginary argument on screen for plant-based carbohydrates versus meat-based protein, and it doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever. It was just completely fabricated for this film to set a false narrative again for dummies to fucking fall into the trap of this stupid fucking nonsense. So my favorite thing in these videos to look at is the athletes because I come from a performance base and I like to see results. Okay. I can't mention, I simply won't have time to mention every athlete and every little step of the way in this documentary. I could make an 8-hour video on, debunking every little fucking thing in there, but I want to talk about the Nate Diaz argument, which was hilarious to me. This is my favorite one. They spun it so that basically they're saying Nate Diaz was fighting Conor McGregor in a vegan versus carnivore matchup. And it's hilarious because they took clips of Conor McGregor, who's a basic omnivore. They took clips of Conor saying that he was eating steak and bacon, etc., explaining how lax his diet has been for the last few days because he actually had to gain weight. So they didn't mention this at all. Before the fight between Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor was cutting weight to 155 pounds to fight Rafael Dos Anjos. Dos Anjos ended up getting hurt. They inserted Nate Diaz on, I believe, 10 or less days notice. And Nate Diaz came in and he's like, well, I can't fight at 155 because I can't make weight on time. And so they agreed to fight at 170. At that point, Conor McGregor had to start gaining his weight back quickly. So he started just, seafood diet, just fucking eating a bunch, right? They took these clips of him saying that and made it seem like he was bragging about being a meat eater and Nate was a vegan, and and that was the narrative. By the way, Nate Diaz is not a vegan, okay? So another falsehood that throws this whole argument out to begin with. Nate Diaz eats fish and he eats eggs, okay? And that's going to cover your cholesterol and your protein and your collagen needs right there. So, but let's play along with their little delusional fucking narrative, okay? So Nate Diaz wins that first fight. That was great. Nate Diaz, amazing fighter. Not taking anything from him. Tough motherfucker. Great martial artist. Complete veteran of the game, And he beats Conor McGregor. He's also a bad matchup for Conor. Turn around. Sometime later, they have the rematch. Okay? And Conor ends up winning. Split decision. So it's 1-for-1. So we could say, by the vegan logic, delusional logic, you got one for veganism and one for carnivore, one for veganism, which is not veganism, and one for carnivore, which is actually omnivore. See how the lies come together here? So let's take a look at something comparable. Let's look at Nate Diaz's last fight. His last fight was against Jorge Masvidal. We don't know much about Jorge's fucking diet, okay? But Jorge Masvidal beats the shit out of Nate for 3 rounds to the point where the skin from his forehead is hanging down over his eye and there's a huge cut there. So the doctor stopped the fight between rounds due to cuts, okay? So here we got Nate and Conor neck and neck for fake vegan versus fake carnivore of the world. And what trumps that is Jorge Masvidal. So what's Jorge Masvidal eating? Well, we don't know for sure exactly what he's eating, but I can tell you for sure that in the post-fight press conference, Jorge Masvidal scarfed down 2 slices of pizza. So by the delusional vegan logic of diet wins fights, we got carnivore and veganism here, pizza way the fuck up here, baby. So if you want to be an elite UFC fighter, get that fucking pizza in you. Start eating pizza now and don't stop until you're world champ. That's the vegan logic.
You need to shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
So now let's look at this Patrick Babuman or whatever you want. I'm going to call him Babuman because it fits the narrative. We're going to call him Patrick Babuman. I first heard about this guy when I had a pack of vegans attack me over a post one time, and one of them said, "Well, what about the world's strongest man being vegan?" And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about? The world's strongest man is vegan?" Like, I'm a fan of WSM, so I had no idea who the fuck they were talking about. And then I get this link to this vegan article stating that the world's strongest man is a vegan, and his name is Patrick Babuman, this Babuman guy. And so I looked into it, and Patrick Babuman is he's a strong man. He's a competitive strong man who allegedly has a world record in the yoke walk. And so I looked into that a little bit, and the guy's impressive. He's pretty strong. Built his foundation on meat, by the way. Switched to vegetarianism, and then eventually switched to veganism plus a bazillion fucking supplements. Okay, and don't forget, strongman competitions are not drug tested. These guys are all on steroids. The meat eaters are on steroids. The vegans are on steroids. Okay. This Patrick Babu man has the world record yoke walk, but he earned it in a competition that nobody really gives a fuck about. It's technically a world competition. That's why they call it a world record. But the real world record holders are guys at the top of the food chain in World's Strongest Man competition. Patrick does not even qualify for the World's Strongest Man competition, okay? So there's guys at the top of the food chain like Hafthor Bjornsson, who has a yoke walk that is more than 300 pounds higher than Patrick's. And there's guys like Brian Shaw and Eddie Hall just crushing numbers that Patrick probably will never ever touch. And these guys are all huge, huge, strong men. And I don't see that anywhere in the fucking video. Why? Because it would make them look weak. They should have stuck, instead of putting this false narrative that Patrick Babuman was going to be the fucking greatest strength athlete of all time, they should have just told the truth on that, because he is a good athlete and he is very strong. But they had to fucking do the typical vegan thing and exaggerate the fuck out of everything and completely just put outlandish claims out there with some nice, video editing behind it to make it seem like it's something that it's not. So then comes the narrative of, let's cut out the middleman. So who's the middleman? The middleman is the cow. We're going to use the cow as the example. It could be a bison, it could be elk, could be chickens, could be pigs, could be any animal that we eat. They're talking about how all of the protein, vitamins, and B12 that we need is in soil and in grass. Okay, first of all, motherfucker, I don't have 4 stomachs to munch on the fucking lawn all day. All cows do is eat. That is 3/4 of their fucking day, eating grass. I cannot do that. I would die, okay? That's why we let the cow eat the grass and get all those nutrients, by which there's no B12 in there, by the way. I don't know why they're saying there is. There's no B12 in there. Then they digest all of the proteins, assimilate it, turn it into an amino acid profile that is actually useful to humans, okay? And then where the cows get the B12 is through bacteria in their gut, okay? They can reabsorb that into the meat, okay? Which is something very unique that we cannot do as humans, okay? And then guess what? We chop up the cow and we eat the bioavailable nutrients. But they're telling you to cut out the middleman and just eat the grass, baby, because that's where it all comes from. Dumbest fucking argument I ever saw. Until I saw their gorilla argument. The gorilla argument they brought in was gorillas are big and strong and they are herbivores. Yeah, okay, well, let's look at the habits of gorillas. Since you guys are putting this forth, I would assume that you guys are willing to eat like a gorilla. How does a gorilla eat? Well, it munches on leaves and plants all fucking day, again like a cow. He grazes, right? But then it will also eat bugs when it finds bugs and monkeys when it catches monkeys. So there you go, two animal proteins right there. It also has a stomach that is nothing like a human's. And how does it get its B12? By eating its own shit. That's how gorillas absorb their B12. They literally munch on plants all day. They don't absorb all of the nutrients, so they shit in their hand. Now they have that bacteria that creates the B12, and they eat their own shit. Let's all jump on board with the big, strong gorilla diet. Fucking morons. So then we got the little in-house experiments brought to you by Haas Avocado, by the way. I'm not joking. That was where the funding came from for their little experiments. And the first one, they had two different burritos. One was a meat burrito. One was a plant-based burrito. The plant-based had basically beans and a little bit of avocado on there. And the meat one had chicken or beef, as they told you. But what a lot of people did not see, and I brought this up to friends and they had to watch it again to see it, was that they added cheese to the meat burrito right at the end, and they did not say anything about adding cheese, okay? So right there, I'm like, they're adding cheese. What are they trying to pull off here? And the whole lead up to this experiment, they were talking about endothelial function and how animal fat is bad for endothelial function, without any basis for that because the studies are inconclusive on that. And I'm like, okay, they're going to do some kind of endothelial function test. So what they did was collect blood from these 3 NFL players who ate these burritos. They collected blood after the plant-based burrito and then after the meat-based burrito. And they put it in a subterfuge or whatever you want to call it, and they spun the blood, and they came back, and, I was expecting some kind of endothelial results. But no, what they did was come back with the vials of blood and show the blood, and the meat and cheese burrito blood was a little bit murky, and they said that is fat in the blood. And it's like, no shit. You just gave them meat and cheese, you fucking idiot. Like, what did you expect to come out of the cheese? Like fucking pixie dust? That's how it works, you dumb fuck. Especially when you mix high amounts of carbs and fat. You're going to get triglycerides in the blood. That's how it works. It needs to be processed from there. So the NFL guys look at this study and they're like, oh my God, the one guy's like, my dad had a heart attack, and it was all dramatic, and they acted like it fucking proved something, but they didn't show any actual endothelial functional test. They just showed the murkiness of the blood, and that was it. And I was just like dumbfounded looking at the screen like, where's the study? I thought they were going to do something because all these vegans were bragging about this fucking documentary like it was gospel. And here we are just looking at vials of blood. So they go into another one later on in the documentary. They go into another experiment about boner function, basically. But how can you trust that when they fucked up so bad on the first one? So, there's definitely variables that they didn't tell us about. Basically, it was a vegan meal versus a meat meal. They did actually mention the quality of the meat in this one. And they said that the guys who ate the meat meal had less boners throughout the night. But they didn't release any of the variables really. Like they didn't say how close to bed they ate the meals. It could have been that these guys were still digesting the meat while they were sleeping, so they weren't getting as much blood to their extremities. Or it could have been that they added ingredients to the veggie-based meal that increased blood flow, like, some kind of herbal fucking Viagra. You don't know. Like, you don't know what they did because obviously they're trying to get a certain result that, you know what I mean? So they're going to fucking manipulate things as best they can to make it look like it's in favor of the fucking veggies. So, like, what the fuck is this? It was just parlor tricks and snake oil. It had nothing to do with any kind of studies. It was just fucking straight up horse shit, folks. It's all horse shit and it's bad for you. I should say gorilla shit. But yeah, and then the last quarter, I'm going to pretty much end there. But, insert Arnold Schillenegger. Here comes Arnold to get his 2 cents in there and completely sell the film to the fitness community, because you need a big name on there. So here's Arnold, one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time, allegedly, if as long as you don't believe the rumors where he fixed the competitions. And a guy who completely built his career on meat protein, completely built his bodybuilding career on meat protein, completely, which led to him getting an acting career, which led to him getting a political career, and all tied into him marrying into royalty, basically, but nobody talks about that. So here comes Arnold to give his 2 cents about his cholesterol, and it's like, I don't give a shit, Arnold, you fucking sellout pussy. You said your favorite food is fucking steak. Like, you built your career on meat. You're a sellout shill for James Cameron. Like, they're probably fresh off a pedophilic orgy with fucking Greta Thunberg, both of them. So, it all comes off as not only biased opinion on the vegan end, but I'm almost at this point feeling like, getting a little conspiracy theorist, with is this an elite plan to fucking weaken the world? Because honestly, the last part is about saving the environment, and I'll leave that up to better, people who can better explain environmental issues than me, because that's not my wheelhouse. But ultimately, I just got the vibe that it's just a globalist agenda wrapped up in feelings of guilt and fake righteousness, man. Like, AKA, like the NWO, my friends, like just fucking Satanist pedophile rulers of all telling you how to think and feel. And that's what I get from it. It just feels like it ties in with that whole fucking globalist agenda. And I wouldn't be surprised because you got Arnold and you got fucking James Cameron, and they're trying to make their millions off, they're already rich. They're already rich. So I get that James Cameron's trying to sell you on pea protein, which by the way is completely counterculture to the whole we don't need protein thing that they were trying to sell earlier in the film, which is crazy to me because they're talking about how you don't need protein as much, and that plants provide all essential amino acids. It's like, yeah, but not in the right profiles and not nearly enough leucine, so, but anyway, that's it. I'm going to end on that because otherwise I'm going to fucking start ranting. And if you like, even if you saw me cutting the clips, it's because I cut the clips because I started ranting, and this would have been a fucking 8-hour video if I left everything in there. So I'm chopping this video up a little bit, and you don't see me do that a lot. My videos are usually just straight raw, one fucking feed, but I needed to cut this one up because I ranted too fucking much, and I got a little worked up, man, because this stuff just pisses me off. It's really, really terrible. I don't agree with it on any level, not on a nutritional level, not on a logical level, and not even on, on a political level, I guess you could say. So I give this movie 18 thumbs down. the worst piece of shit I've ever seen with the best editing I've ever seen. And that's it, man. Appreciate you guys watching my videos. More updates on my cut coming soon. Down 20 pounds, baby. Feeling stronger than ever. Still benching those high numbers. And my head kicks are getting up there again. Woo! Getting those round kicks in Muay Thai. So I'm excited about that. And that's it, man. Love you. Peace.